They say those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. But what happens when history makers themselves are the ones making monumental mistakes? From billion-dollar blunders to decisions that backfired in spectacular fashion, the U.S. government has left its mark, sometimes at a staggering cost. In Part 1, we uncovered the first 18 shocking missteps that reshaped policies and headlines. Now it's time to continue the countdown and witness the next 18 failures, the ones that went even bigger, bolder, and more catastrophic. Let's dive in. Number 1. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. On January 28, 1986, millions of people watched as the Space Shuttle Challenger took off, carrying 7 astronauts, including teacher Krista McAuliffe. Just 73 seconds after launch, the shuttle exploded, killing everyone on board. An investigation later found that engineers from Morton Thiokol had warned NASA the night before that the cold weather could make the rubber O-rings in the rocket boosters fail. They urged delaying the launch, but NASA managers, under pressure to stay on schedule, decided to go ahead anyway. The O-rings failed exactly as predicted. Outcome: 7 astronauts lost their lives, and the shuttle program was paused for nearly 3 years. The disaster showed how management pressure overrode technical safety concerns. Lesson: ignoring engineers' safety warnings because of deadlines or politics can lead to tragedy, a mistake NASA would face again years later. With the Columbia disaster. Number 2. The Trail of Tears. In the 1830s, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which forced Native American tribes in the southeastern U.S. to move to land in present-day Oklahoma. The Cherokee Nation tried to resist through the courts and even won a Supreme Court case, Worcester versus Georgia, but the government ignored the ruling. Around 100,000 people from the Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw nations were forced to walk hundreds of miles. The journey was brutal. Many lacked food, warm clothing, or shelter, and disease spread quickly. About 15,000 people died, including many children and elders. Whole communities were destroyed. Outcome: the Trail of Tears became one of the most tragic examples of forced relocation in U.S. history, now recognized as ethnic cleansing. Lesson: the event showed how government policies based on greed and prejudice can violate human rights and cause lasting harm to entire peoples, a pain still felt by Native American communities. Number 3. The Healthcare Gov. Launch failure. On October 1, 2013, the U.S. government launched healthcare.gov, a website meant to help millions of Americans sign up for health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. Expectations were high, but the site crashed almost immediately. Users couldn't make accounts, pages froze, and error messages appeared constantly. On the first day, only 6 people in the entire country were able to enroll. The project had cost about $2.1 billion. Contractors blamed each other for problems, and it was later found that the site had poor code, weak testing, and bad system integration. The Obama administration faced strong criticism, and private tech experts were brought in to fix it. It took several months before the website worked properly. Outcome: the site eventually functioned, but the failed launch became a major embarrassment and raised doubts about how the government handles large technology projects. Lesson: big government tech projects need strong testing, coordination, and management. Money alone can't guarantee success. But wait, there's an operation that defies belief. Number 4. Operation Fast and Furious. Between 2006 and 2011, the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, ran a plan called Operation Fast and Furious. Agents allowed suspected gun traffickers to buy guns so they could track the weapons and find cartel leaders in Mexico. But the tracking system failed. The ATF lost track of around 2,000 guns, many of which ended up with criminals in Mexico. One of these guns was used in the 2010 killing of U.S. Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. Investigations showed serious mistakes and poor supervision. The scandal led to political fallout and a congressional investigation. Many of the guns are still showing up at crime scenes years later. Outcome: the operation meant to stop gun smuggling actually helped criminals get more weapons. Lesson: law enforcement plans that allow illegal actions must have strict oversight. Otherwise, they can cause more harm than they prevent. Number 5. The savings and loan crisis. In the 1980s, new laws gave savings and loan (S&L) banks more freedom to invest money, while their deposits stayed insured by the government. The idea was that more competition would make banking better. Instead, many S&Ls made risky real estate deals and poor investments. Some leaders even committed fraud or stole from their own banks. When the real estate market went down, over 1,000 S&Ls collapsed. The government had to step in and created the Resolution Trust Corporation to fix the mess. The bailout cost taxpayers about $160 billion, around $350 billion today. A few people went to jail, but many responsible walked away rich. Outcome: a major financial crisis that cost taxpayers billions. Lesson: if banks are protected by government insurance, strong rules and oversight are necessary. Otherwise, they might take huge risks knowing the public will pay for their mistakes. This next event was purely embarrassing. Number 6. The British burning of Washington, D.C. In August 1814, during the War of 1812, British troops landed in Maryland and marched toward Washington, D.C. The American army was poorly organized. Many militia units ran away and defenses were weak. The British easily entered the city and burned key government buildings, including the White House, Capitol, Treasury, and War Department. President James Madison fled the city, and First Lady Dolly Madison saved a famous portrait of George Washington before escaping. A strong tornado and rainstorm later helped put out the fires. Outcome: Washington, D.C. was captured and burned, the worst foreign attack on the U.S. Capitol in history. Lesson: the event showed how unprepared the U.S. military was at the time and proved that even the nation's capital needs proper defense planning and coordination. Number 7. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. From 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service ran a study in Tuskegee, Alabama, to watch how syphilis developed in African American men without treating them. About 600 men took part. 399 had syphilis, and 201 did not. They were told they had bad blood and would get free medical care, but they were not given treatment. Even after penicillin became the cure in the 1940s, doctors still didn't treat them so they could keep studying the disease. Many men became very sick or died. Their wives caught the infection, and children were born with it. In 1972, a whistleblower exposed the study to the public, causing national outrage. Later, the government created new rules requiring informed consent and ethical review boards for medical research. President Bill Clinton formally apologized in 1997. Outcome: a shocking violation of medical ethics that deeply harmed trust in healthcare, especially among African Americans. Lesson: medical research must always be honest, voluntary, and ethical, with full consent and proper oversight to prevent such abuses from happening again. Number 8. The Iran hostage rescue mission failure. In April 1980, 52 Americans were being held hostage at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran. President Jimmy Carter approved a secret rescue plan called Operation Eagle Claw. The plan was complicated. 8 helicopters would fly from a ship to a desert spot called Desert One to meet transport planes and special forces before heading to the embassy. But things went wrong. A huge dust storm caused mechanical failures. One helicopter had to turn back, and another broke down at Desert One. With too few working helicopters, commanders canceled the mission. As the troops prepared to leave, a helicopter hit a transport plane. causing an explosion that killed 8 American soldiers. The hostages stayed captive for 8 more months, only released when Ronald Reagan became president. Outcome: a tragic failure that hurt President Carter's reputation and exposed poor planning and coordination. Lesson: missions involving many moving parts in dangerous places need careful planning, strong backup systems, and clear coordination, or even small problems can lead to disaster. Get ready for this intelligence assessment failure. Number 9. The Iraq WMD Intelligence Assessment. In the early 2000s, President George W. Bush's administration claimed that Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, had weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, including chemical, biological, and possibly nuclear weapons. In 2003, Secretary of State Colin Powell presented this evidence to the United Nations, and Congress approved military action. The U.S. and its allies invaded Iraq in March 2003, but after the invasion, no WMDs were found. The Iraq Survey Group confirmed that Iraq had no active WMD programs. Later investigations showed that much of the intelligence was wrong, unclear, or based on unreliable sources. Some reports had been made to sound more certain than they really were. Outcome: the U.S. entered a long and costly war, trillions of dollars spent and thousands of lives lost, based partly on incorrect intelligence. Lesson: when intelligence is uncertain, it must not be presented as fact. Policy decisions should be based on verified evidence, not assumptions or political pressure. Number 10. The Pentagon's $600 toilet seat procurement. In the 1980s, news stories revealed that the U.S. Department of Defense was paying ridiculous prices for simple items, like $640 for a toilet seat, $435 for a hammer, and $7,600 for a coffee maker. People were outraged. Defense officials said the prices looked high because of complex accounting rules. Research and development costs and other expenses were spread across all parts, even small ones. But this explanation didn't convince most taxpayers. The story led to congressional hearings and major reforms in how the military buys supplies. Senator William Proxmire even gave these examples his famous Golden Fleece Award for Government Waste. Outcome: the scandal embarrassed the Pentagon and forced changes in procurement and accounting systems. Lesson: when government spending looks wasteful, even if it's due to accounting rules, it destroys public trust and shows the need for clear, efficient, and transparent budgeting. Number 11. The Hurricane Katrina response. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast as a Category 3 storm. In New Orleans, the levees broke, flooding 80% of the city. Thousands of people were trapped in their homes or crowded into the Superdome and Convention Center, where there wasn't enough food, water, or medical care. The government response, especially from FEMA, was slow and disorganized. Communication between local, state, and federal agencies broke down. Many people had to wait days for help while the whole world watched the crisis unfold. More than 800 people died, and the recovery took years. Outcome: a tragic disaster worsened by poor planning and coordination. Lesson: when large disasters strike, fast and well-organized teamwork between all levels of government is essential, something the Katrina response failed to provide. This scandal literally involved livestock as bribes. Number 12. The Teapot Dome Scandal. In the early 1920s, Albert Fall, the Secretary of the Interior, controlled special oil reserves meant for the U.S. Navy at Teapot Dome, Wyoming, and Elk Hills, California. Instead of protecting them, he secretly leased the oil fields to his friends' private companies. In return, he received about $404,000 in cash, bonds, and even cattle, a huge bribe at the time. When reporters and Congress exposed the deal, it became one of the biggest political scandals in U.S. history. Fall was convicted of corruption, becoming the first cabinet member ever sent to prison. Outcome: a major scandal that badly damaged public trust in government. Lesson: even powerful government officials must be held accountable. Corruption at the top can destroy confidence in democracy itself. Number 13. Operation Northwood's Proposals. In the early 1960s, U.S. military leaders created a secret plan called Operation Northwoods. The idea was to stage fake attacks and blame them on Cuba to justify a U.S. invasion. The proposals included sinking refugee boats, faking attacks on U.S. bases, and even staging hijackings to make it look like Cuba was responsible. These were called false flag operations. The plan was sent to Defense Secretary Robert McNamara and reviewed by President John F. Kennedy. Kennedy rejected it immediately, and the plan was never carried out. When the documents were declassified in the 1990s, people were shocked to learn that such proposals had been seriously discussed. Outcome: the plan was stopped before it began, but it revealed how extreme some Cold War strategies had become. Lesson: even in times of tension, ethical limits must guide military and government planning. Manufacturing false justifications for war crosses those limits. Number 14. The Iran cash payment. In January 2016, the U.S. sent $400 million in cash to Iran on wooden pallets. The money was part of a settlement from an old arms deal that dated back to before the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The problem was timing. The payment happened on the same day Iran released 4 American prisoners. U.S. officials said it was not ransom, only repayment of money legally owed. But critics argued it looked like ransom, which could encourage more hostage situations. Because of sanctions, the U.S. couldn't use normal bank transfers, so the money was delivered as physical cash flown in secretly, which made it appear even more suspicious. Outcome: the event caused major political debate about whether the payment was appropriate. Lesson: even if a transaction is legal, poor timing and secrecy can create damaging public perceptions, especially when it happens alongside sensitive diplomatic events. But this next operation was a spectacular failure. Number 15. The Bay of Pigs invasion. In April 1961, the CIA trained about 400 Cuban exiles to invade Cuba and overthrow Fidel Castro. The plan assumed that once they landed at the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban people would rise up against Castro. Things went wrong right away. Boats hit coral reefs, air support was canceled to hide U.S. involvement, and Castro's forces were already prepared. No uprising happened. Within 3 days, most invaders were killed or captured. President John F. Kennedy had to admit U.S. involvement publicly. The failed mission embarrassed the U.S., strengthened Castro's power, and pushed Cuba closer to the Soviet Union. Outcome: a complete failure that damaged America's credibility and worsened Cold War tensions. Lesson: the invasion was based on false assumptions, weak planning, and poor coordination, showing how overconfidence and bad intelligence can turn a covert mission into a public disaster. Number 16. Prohibition under the 18th Amendment. In January 1920, the 18th Amendment made it illegal to make, sell, or transport alcohol in the U.S. Supporters believed this would reduce crime and social problems. Instead, the opposite happened. Illegal bars, speakeasies, opened everywhere, about 30,000 in New York City alone. Bootlegging became big business, and gangsters like Al Capone grew rich and powerful. Violence between rival gangs increased. Many police and politicians took bribes to look the other way. People also drank unsafe industrial alcohol, which caused blindness and deaths. The government even tried to make alcohol undrinkable, killing thousands more. After 13 years, the U.S. ended prohibition with the 21st Amendment in 1933. Outcome: a well-intentioned law led to more crime, corruption, and danger instead of solving problems. Lesson: Trying to ban a popular substance without addressing demand can create worse consequences, including empowering organized crime and eroding public trust in law enforcement. Number 17. The Starfish Prime High-Altitude Nuclear Test. In July 1962, during the Cold War, the U.S. carried out a test called Starfish Prime, exploding a 1.4 megaton nuclear bomb about 250 miles above the Pacific Ocean. The goal was to study how high-altitude nuclear blasts affected the atmosphere and space. Scientists didn't expect how powerful the electromagnetic pulse, EMP, would be. The pulse traveled hundreds of miles. In Honolulu, Hawaii, about 900 miles away, streetlights went out, phones stopped working, and burglar alarms all went off at once. The blast also created radiation belts that damaged or destroyed 6 satellites, including Telstar, the world's first communications satellite. Outcome: the test caused widespread, unexpected damage and revealed how dangerous EMPs could be. Lesson: Starfish Prime showed that nuclear explosions or solar storms can severely disrupt electrical systems, a discovery that changed how scientists and governments plan to protect modern infrastructure. Number 18. The Pig War of 1859. In June 1859, San Juan Island lay between U.S. and British territories, and both sides claimed it. Americans and British people lived there together, but no one was sure who truly controlled the island. One day, an American farmer named Lyman Cutler found a British-owned pig eating his potatoes. Angry, he shot the pig. The pig's owner demanded $100. Cutler offered $10. They argued, and soon both governments got involved. The British threatened to arrest Cutler, and American settlers asked for military help. Soon, 461 American soldiers with cannons faced 2,000 British troops and 5 warships, all over one dead pig. Luckily, no one fired a shot. Both sides agreed to share control of the island while they waited for arbitration. 12 years later, in 1872, Germany's Emperor Wilhelm I ruled that the island belonged to the United States. Outcome: the only casualty was the pig. Lesson: even small problems can become dangerous when borders are unclear, but diplomacy and patience can prevent unnecessary wars, even over something as silly as a pig. From wars sparked by seemingly small mistakes to disasters that could have been avoided with better planning, American history is filled with government blunders. Some of these errors cost billions of dollars, others cost lives, and many eroded public trust in leadership. Yet each one carries an important lesson about planning, communication, oversight, and the consequences of ignoring history. These 36 examples span military actions, disaster responses, intelligence failures, financial mismanagement, and more. What ties them together is how a single poor decision or oversight rippled into consequences that affected countless lives and shaped the nation's path. Which of these blunders shocked you the most? Do you know of other government mistakes worth remembering? Share your thoughts in the comments below. History isn't meant to make us lose faith. It's here to teach. By studying past failures, we hold leaders accountable and gain insight into how to make better decisions for the future. Understanding how things went wrong before helps us build stronger systems and a safer, smarter nation.